Welcome to Running on Ice, the coolest community in freight. I'm your host, Mary O'Connell, bringing you the latest tech updates, warehouse news, and everything happening in the cold chain world. Not only is there the coolest show in freight, but there's also Running on Ice, the newsletter that could not be colder. You can subscribe to that on freightwaves.com/runningonIce. Today, we welcome Archie Mayani, Chief Product Officer at GHX. Thank you so much for joining us today, Archie.
Thank you for having me, Mary. I'm excited to talk to you.
I'm also excited about today. We had GHX on a couple months ago. Obviously not you. We had one of your coworkers on, and you guys have really come out swinging lately saying, you know what, we're going to put healthcare right back in the front of where it needs to be, front and center. And you guys have really just said, we're doubling down on it and making sure that nothing's falling through the cracks here.
That is so true. And, I was thinking running on ice is a perfect metaphor for healthcare supply chain because, you can wobble, you can try to balance. One thing you cannot do is you cannot fail or fall for your customers. So, you are absolutely right. We are doubling down and we are taking all the shots we can.
And as someone who, all the shots you can, shots healthcare. Look at that. That was a good one. As someone who utilizes the healthcare supply chain, I appreciate that you guys are like, hey, we're going to make it better for everyone involved. Before we get too far into that, though, today, let's get some background on you and how you got started at GHX.
So, it started 25 years ago. I was a biomedical engineer building spinal surgery software. So think about helping surgeons actually navigating spine with code. And since then, worked at several Fortune 10 companies building their clinical and diagnostic platforms. But there is this idea in me, which I think I can articulate better now, Mary, but I think I've always had it, even growing up, that this idea of service to humanity and at scale. And GHX, it is like service at scale because, there's no other company in the world, I would say, that actually has this amazing customer community of providers and suppliers working together to get the right supplies at the right time. So I just thought, help navigating that, getting the supplies into the OR, into the hands of the providers. That is what really, brought me here 2.5 years ago. And, as the chief product officer, it's what you said, we doubled down. We said, we've got this amazing network of 25 years. How do we make it better, faster, more intelligent so that the humans in the network can do the higher order creative bits versus all of the repetitive tasks can be fully automated and agentified forever. That's what we do at GHX.
I 1,000% love that. First of all, I just want to back up the fact that you were just casually helping out with spinal surgery. You just casually dropped that nugget in there of like, you're like, no problem. Like, just done that. And now you're here just improving the healthcare supply chain. What a trajectory. And I personally love to see it. But one of the things that you had just mentioned was that you guys are trying to automate the things that are repetitive. And as someone who used to have a repetitive job, which was literally copying and pasting appointment or shipment numbers and changing the appointment time, that was my entire job. All day, every day for 8 hours. It was not fun. And that's something that is perfect for automation because you can just have it read something and make the changes. And then that way that would have freed me up to do like actual critical thinking or actual skills that are helpful further up the supply chain. But what has it really taken to move to, because healthcare notoriously isn't what I would say we're willing to make big sweeping changes like right off the bat, but we're starting to see some more healthcare organizations, suppliers, hospitals, healthcare supply chain, even we're seeing them move to being more AI friendly, to being more at kind of that, dare I say, the cutting edge of technology. So what is it taking to get them from going, we'll see if somebody else does that and how that works out? And like, how are they going from that to, okay, let's actually integrate this and get this involved for us?
I think I mean, you've got this knack anyway, but I think this time around, like, I think it was the fastest hitting the nail on its head. Um, you are right. This time, the change is different in healthcare. Like I said, I've been 25 years in healthcare, and I think we've constantly talked about adoption of cloud, adoption of digitization. I think now it's acceleration because did you know, Mary, 74% of physicians today use AI in some form. And that is actually 85% up from the prior year. Like that's how quickly we are accelerating use of AI in healthcare, period. But another statistic is also true. 80% of AI pilots fail to scale. And it's not because the models fail, it's because the trust does. And that's what I want to
Mhm.
talk about, this idea of, how do you actually employ the trust equation in healthcare? Because in healthcare, you have to be able to build not only AI, but everything responsibly. Because you know what? A dating app hallucinates. That's such a funny story, right? That is one that Mary would tell all of us. But a patient on the operating room, your AI hallucinating there with not showing up the right supply, that's not funny. So,
Mm-mm.
you have to be able to build it responsibly. And what we use at GHX is something called as the 3 E's framework: short and sweet, explore, embed, and elevate. And I think where we have actually gone right, I think that was your question behind the question, like what is so unique about GHX and why haven't you failed of those 80% that you brought up? The reason we haven't is because we've adopted this framework at scale. So explore. We only explore the high value use cases starting with the lowest risk. So we're going to explore these use cases with our customers, build the models, verify, validate the accuracy, the sensitivity, and the ultimate use in the field. Then we are going to start embedding it into their workflows. I think one of the big things where not just healthcare, but companies go wrong is, this idea of AI that's just slapped on top of everything. Everything is an AI, everything is a buzzword. But instead of doing that, making sure that these are the right use cases, your customers have partnered with you. So I think there's embedding going on both sides. And then you start, scaling it out. The elevate comes in only when the model is deployed, the workflows are running in your customer's hands, and then you're getting the feedback and you're constantly improving, and scaling AI throughout the business cases that you have. I think that's really the secret sauce of why, we've had such massive adoption this year. Did you know, Mary, we launched 4 new AI products on July 14th, and our customers love it because, it's easy. We're not differentiating between like this model and this chatbot and this co-pilot. No, it is GHX Resiliency AI, and you experience all of those 4 products in the right way possible inside the customer's workflows versus us trying to force fit or retrofit AI because it's cool.
I think that that's a very unique approach that a lot of people aren't necessarily taking right now, where a lot of people are just saying like, well, here's AI, just get it for the sake of having AI. Here, use this, use this, use this. And they're kind of, like you said, forcing it on their customers, on their shippers without really have gone through and gone, okay, well, what does this look like for this shipper? What does it look like for this carrier? What does it look like for all of the partners in my network? Because a lot of times you aren't just dealing with one facility or one shipper or one customer. And even then, within a customer, each facility could have its own rules and regulations because each one's got a warehouse manager that thinks they're doing the right thing. And so that's hard to take all of that into account. And it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort to go through and say, okay, well, what does it look like here? What are the parameters here? Not that it can't be done, but it just takes a long time. But that's something that you guys have said, yeah, we're willing to invest that time, energy, and effort to make sure we're doing it right, taking our time and servicing our customers and building that very, very important trust of saying, hey, like we are going to continue to give you the quality and the standard that we've set, but we're doing it a little better, a little faster. And here's where you don't even notice the difference. We're still coming on time. We're still getting everything done. And ultimately, it's just ending up better and stronger for the customers. That's something that I think a lot of AI implementation misses, if I may be so bold.
I think, it's exactly that. The AI that actually takes time to build trust is actually fastest for adoption. So you are 100% on the mark that take the time to build it with your customers, validate it that it's actually adding value before you scale it out and in a hurry to say, okay, we're going to bolt AI on everything that's built.
And I think that that's something that is a unique, it's kind of like a unique problem to healthcare. Because if you threw this out on lumber, for example, if it was a whole bunch of flatbeds of lumber, okay, the lumber shipment shows up a day late. Maybe you have to slow down production of a building or a warehouse or something for a day. But in healthcare, like we were talking about earlier, you can't be late. You can't have these delays. Maybe you can be an hour late. It's not great, but it's better to have like we can fudge an hour a little bit versus a day or two or three, or the AI booked the shipment, but in reality it never made it into the TMS and it never got a carrier, and so now I don't know, it should be there next week. And that's something that I think does contribute to a lot of healthcare supply chain, like kind of that I'm going to hold back to not necessarily move forward with technology until we can work through all the bugs, or I can see the technology actually working and doing something, but for someone else, because I'm not going to be the one to be the guinea pig. I'm not going to get my stuff messed up. I'm going to let others do it. And that's something that I think is unique to healthcare, because there is no margin for error. So if I'm going all in with you, if I'm going forward with this technology, I do really I need to be careful, and I need to make sure that my partner has my best interest at heart, not just, okay, we're going to be there. We're going to hold your hand. This integration's going to go great. And then a month in, something breaks. And then they're like, hey, you're like, hey, can you help me fix this? And they're like, oh yeah, no, you're going to have to fill out a ticket for that. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Um, so when it comes to that, I know that this is where like the healthcare needs the preciseness, and they need to have that you cannot failness. Cannot failness. I don't know if that's a word. It is now. Um, but the other thing that the other problem that it has is ultimately it's still a supply chain, which means that there's still that incorrect data. There's still that, oh, we got to reformat a sheet, or we have an Excel sheet. We have an Excel sheet that we have to upload. I'm going to say it till I'm blue in the face. It's 2025, guys. Let's stop running our supply chains on Excel. But you still have those that are like, oh, well, Johnny from medical code number 1 sends me an Excel sheet, and then I upload it into the TMS, and that's how we do it. Wildly inefficient. Let's stop doing that, friends. But that being said, that's still there. And to kind of get the AI involved and to get technology up to date, you have to handle those use cases. How do you make sure that, you are getting that good data that you can feed into the AI, and you are getting all of those partners involved, so that way we can maybe stop Johnny from sending an Excel file of what the loads he needs covered this week are?
That is such a good question, because I think one of the things you were trying to highlight how hard it is to build AI, or anything for that matter, in healthcare because of the data being so fragmented. But I'm actually going to flip and say it's actually healthcare is the perfect proving ground for AI. And here's why. 3 reasons, actually. 1, the stakes don't get higher than life and death. 2, because the data is so complex, so fragmented, it actually makes sense that we have immense amount of depth and breadth in this data to actually build models that are so well trained. Now, getting it all together and getting those cohorts of data sets together, yes, that is the work to be done, but it is perfect. And then number 3, like I said, it's ripe for acceleration. We've had such burnout. You know this. It's actually been hitting before COVID, but
Hmm.
even after COVID, we are seeing such burnout, not just the clinical burnout that often gets talked about, but even the administrative burnout in healthcare. So AI is actually there to solve for these problems. Now, how do you get there? I think that is a critical question for all of the technologists that are working in any regulated industry. So in any regulated industry, you have to do a few things and few things really, really well. So we have to make sure it can be black boxes. Our AI has to be explainable, like what's going
Hmm.
in, what's coming out, what's happening inside. We can't have biases. We can't have inexplainability. Absolutely has to be there. We talked about data sets, right? We talked about how much of a need there is to have this breadth and diversity. I'll give you an example from a non-supply chain days. We were building software for breast screening so that early mammograms can just read those preliminary readings through the software. And we actually failed miserably because we only took the data from North American women. So it actually didn't work on other demographics at all. The model failed. And I think the
Hmm.
same works for our supply chain data. Like if you're just going to use a particular data set and not across the global entities, your model is not going to work as well. And then I think number three, which is most important, I think this idea of AI council. You have to have that governance around what's going in, what's coming out, that explainability, and making sure that your customers are part of this council, different experts from within the industry, from within your own organization are on that council to make sure you are HIPAA compliant, you're following the new rules and regulations that are coming out for healthcare, because that is what is going to make us safe and actionable. So you are 1000% right that data isn't, data alone isn't enough, and you have to be able to do all of these things because it is healthcare and it is life and death at stake.
That is my go-to is like when I was a freight broker, I would always go, we're just shipping like auto parts. It's not life and death. But no, it literally is in this instance. It literally is because you can't have those mistakes or you just can't. And there's so much testing and so much like you said, the data, like knowing that you had to do the entire data set, not just from one region. Those are things that you do have to learn, and ideally you find those in test so that way it's not out in production and you can stop it before anything potentially negative happens. But that's where you kind of have to just continue to test it and test it and test it and make sure that okay, it is right. And that's what one of the things that's important, and that quality assurance is that we have done our part, and we did, like, we'll tell on ourselves we found this mistake, but we fixed it, and this is how we've done it moving forward. And there was no significant impact to anything because it was just something of us more or less, I don't want to say messing around, but we were exploring our options and running to validate it. And oh, we found a mistake, but it wasn't already in production. So we're just going to adopt it and move forward and continue testing to make sure that we found all possible negative implications.
We have a perfect example to share from our back order pilot that we did. We thought it was the best thing since sliced bread, really, Mary, because we were be able to predict, with really good accuracy, what are the next set of items that could be potentially back ordered, and also marking, where exactly they would be and what kind of substitutes exist in the near neighborhood. When we showed it to our customers are like, well, you're showing me 5,000 items that are going to be back ordered. I don't care if the Band-Aid go getting back ordered. Show me the list of items that are relevant to me, that are clinically sensitive. And so I think it's exactly what you said. We're like, oops, yes, you are absolutely right. That is the most important thing for us to worry about. We're going to go back, retrain the model, introduce clinical
Mhm.
sensitivity as another rubric in it. And, that is what the customers fell in love on July 14th, that this idea that it's not just everything in your universe that's going to be back ordered, but
Mhm.
hey, these are the top 5 things you should really worry about, and here are the substitutes.
That I think is really an interesting point because you guys have said, look, we did a thing. Because at the same time, you don't know what you don't know. And so if you go, here's a nice shiny object, and they're like, that's great, but that object doesn't help me. And you're like, well, we didn't know that this object doesn't help you. We're going to go get you one that does help you. And then you come back and you're like, look, see, this one actually helps you because, like you said, you don't know what you don't know. And while you might say, well, you want to know what everything is, they're just like, no, I really only want to know like my top 10 movers. I want to know when those are going to run out. Because if a doctor's office runs out of band-aids, they can go down the store to grab CVS or something like that. Not that that's like the case, but it's something that like it's not mission critical the same way you would need gauze or gloves or sutures.
Yeah, that's it.
So we have time for about two more questions, and one of them will be the best question of the day. But for those, before we get to that, for those organizations that are like, you know what, I think it's time for us to move forward into technology. And I'm not saying that we need to go just like a little bit. They're like, let's go out and let's stop. We have decided we're going to stop using Excel to send our supply chain together. But if they're just kind of starting to explore AI and they're really concerned because maybe all they know is, ChatGPT or the chat bots, what would be that piece of advice that you would give them?
Three, three.
Okay.
I'm going to bring us back to the 3 things we talked about how we do at GHX. Explore, embed, elevate. Explore the most important use cases for your customers. You have to start backward from the customers and choose the lowest risk ones because then you are going to create that adoption flywheel. Number 2, you're going to make sure you are creating clean, accurate, diverse data sets to train your model. That is imperative. There are no shortcuts there. You have to be able to have that data governance, accuracy, and privacy on mind, no matter which industry you're in. And then number 3, experiment with your customers and then scale. Again, that example that I shared that, look, we built this and we caught it early because our customers were part of that feedback loop very early on. It
Mhm.
wasn't deployed in production. Can you imagine pulling something back and then doing it? That's why you have to have your customer partners and champions who are giving you feedback as you're building. That is the only way to experiment quickly and scale fast. So that is what I would leave you with and your listeners, that three-pronged approach.
I think that's I don't want to say it's like overly simplistic because a lot of the things inside that are not simplistic at
Okay.
all, specifically everything around the data governance part of things. But
Easier
it just,
said, harder done. Yeah.
yes. And it's just because it's something that, starting with your customers is a great idea. And starting with some of those low hanging fruits that are those easy wins. Because you're not saying we need to come in and overhaul everything and take all the workers out of the warehouse and replace them with robots. It's like, no, what about just inventory levels? What about back orders? Stuff like that that are helpful. So that way maybe they're buyers know we need to buy more of this or we need to be prepared for this or whatever else those are. That's an easier win than we're going to come in and just do all of this at the beginning.
No, I think if anybody's thinking, oh my God, this is going to replace me. No, this is going to replace you for all the things you don't want to do so that you can get to things you want to do.
Exactly. It makes it so you don't have to sit there for 8 hours copying and pasting shipment numbers and changing appointment times.
Okay.
All right. So we are almost out of time, but there's one more question everybody has come on the show has had to answer. Archie, is cereal considered a soup?
Absolutely not. It is a dessert. It has
Wait,
dessert
what?
energy. Yes. Okay. What do I need in a dessert? 27 different flavors of sugar.
Uh-huh.
Tastes best with milk. It is a dessert.
Okay, that is a strong statement for that. Because you are
Okay,
right.
how about
Because
this one?
sugar.
How about this one? Dessert,
Okay.
you have to be able to enjoy with a bowl with a cartoon or your favorite show. Isn't that what you do in the morning or evening when you
Okay.
have a bowl of cereal?
Okay, that is a strong statement. I also love to eat dessert. I just feel like not dessert. Well, first of all, I love to eat dessert. Second of all, I love the sugary cereals. So that's right up my
See?
alley because what is dessert if not, like you said, 27 different kinds of
Cocoa
sugar?
Puffs all the
Um,
way. It's like it's got chocolate, it's got sugar, it's got milk. Like there's nothing better than Cocoa Puffs.
I think
Mm.
this might be a strong case. It's not soup, it's a dessert.
I'm telling you, it's brilliant. It I'm telling you, it was forced into this breakfast category by I don't know who. They just have it all wrong.
Kellogg's probably.
I mean, I enjoy cereal no matter what time of the day or night, just like I would enjoy a piece of cake. Like, what more do you need from
Breakfast cake.
me?
Why is breakfast cake not a thing? Like a delicious
Maybe,
piece of chocolate cake
maybe
for breakfast.
that's the question that we should be asking.
Why is breakfast give breakfast or give cake its breakfast justice?
Yes, and we've all done it and enjoyed it.
And it's been delicious. It has been wonderful. Archie, this is probably the best answer I've ever had to this question
I think you
by
say it
far.
to everybody. Here's a
No.
secret. I told my
Yes.
son, I'm like, I've got the funnest, I'm going to have the funnest question because I know she asks this to everybody. And she's like, so what are
Hmm.
you? He's like, what are you going to say? I'm like, I'm going to say it's a dessert. And he's like, you don't even let me eat.
Well, it's because you're still a kid. When you're an adult, you can do it.
Exactly, exactly. I'm like, you need those work pressures that I have, and then you can start eating dessert. Not right now.
I love this so much. All right, Archie. If anyone has any questions on why dessert doesn't or why cake doesn't get its breakfast due, or if they are in healthcare supply chain and they're like, you know what, I want to make some improvements, where can they find you outside the show?
They can actually follow us on ghx.com, and then certainly if you want to hear more about dessert recommendations, also find me on LinkedIn. I'm Archie Mayani.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope somebody gets the answer to why cake isn't used in breakfast. Because I personally would love that. But also, I had an absolute blast talking with you today. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
You can catch other episodes of Running on Ice right here on FreightWaves TV, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts like Apple Podcast and Spotify. Need more Running on Ice news? No sweat. Subscribe to the newsletter on freightwaves.com/runningonIce. See you on the internet.